Through Russian hacking, Cambridge Analytica, and endless talk of algorithms, disinformation has taken on the aspect of an abstract, unknowable enemy. In its influence campaigns against Taiwan, though, China can be more grounded. In June 2023, we had identified grassroots society as a battleground in China's information war and had just begun our investigations. Then, the following month, an article in The Economist threw a searchlight of publicity across the entire issue. Our contacts went quiet. Temples closed their doors. Community leaders were too busy to speak with us. And then, as if from nowhere, an unlikely guide. Little did we know, but this trip into Taiwan's grassroots heartland was only the beginning of a long journey into a dark tangle. This is the story of how Beijing preys on shared faith and culture to seed tendrils of influence into the very heart of Taiwanese society. In that black Mercedes, Lin Guoxin was taking us to meet the chief of Tai'an Temple in the city of Tainan, some 300 kilometers south of Taipei. That temple chief was Cai Rongzong, a local luminary who has spent his entire life in and around the area. He spoke passionately about the past and future of the temple, the Mazu faith, and his own place in it all. We were interested to learn about the temple's recent pilgrimage to Meizhou in China.
我们是360年来第一次，从前的那个委员会他们都没有提起过要到梅州去。这一次，因为董主委是我们村庄里面的教人给，所以他才建议说，是不是这么久了，人家别人都一窝蜂的往大陆跑，我们是不是也应该跟大家到祖庙去看一看？啊，就这样而已。
对，国军哥也很想要，也是想要带他去对岸。
对，
是啊，
但是很热心。
真的啊，不是啦，我们纯粹有的文化交流，你不要把它政治化。
对，
我们都是平民百姓，绝对完全都是文化的交流。
好，接下来的时间，我们来看两岸交流方面的新闻。
这30多年来呢，两岸文化交流的规模跟层次啊，是一直在扩大跟深化的。
而两岸的妈祖文化交流活动呢，也是越来越密切。
台湾有大大小小近万个妈祖庙，都是从湄洲岛祖庙分灵入台的。
据统计，20多年来，共有200多万人次台胞到大陆进香朝拜。活动也日益增多。
10月24号、
9号到11号、
17至20号、27号、
12号凌晨5点钟
，100余家两岸妈祖公庙代表
，1600多名的民间信仰人士，
众多来自台湾的妈祖信众，台湾妈祖联谊会会长郑明坤一行，
台湾上万名妈祖信众
来到天津、
泉州、青岛、
北京、福田、梅州、
共同拜谒妈祖，欣赏民俗，
举行盛大的绕境巡游和进香夜祖仪式，
台胞感受到了同根同源的浓厚香气。
我们都得上战场，当炮挥棒，努力攻击。台湾的民主。
林国信林队长，头跑，蓝头跑，送旗，吕定加油，头跑。
As it turned out, Lin Guoxin is himself a key player in the world of cultural exchanges.
小时候我是一个乡下人，我从来都不接触政治的。当初是我哥哥跟着我们张安乐总裁成立那个中华统一促进党，然后他在3年前，我哥哥生病了。我当初哥哥叫我接的时候，我还心有余悸，说干嘛叫我接统一促进党？我哥哥分析给我听，我们总裁张安乐他的 本意也是希望说我们和两岸是和平相处，共享繁荣。
我名字叫
张安乐，otherwise known as the White Wolf。
我是我们中华统一促进党的总裁。
He's a former leader of the Bamboo Union, an organized crime group.
哇，做过太多事情了。
He fled Taiwan in the 90s following a series of crackdowns on organized crime. He returned to Taiwan in 2013 and began opening offices for the China Unification Promotion Party, the CUPP.
我们做这个，一个是公益一个就是抗议一个是庆祝，大概这3件大事。
Essentially parroting pro-Beijing talking points and being involved in a number of incidents which appear to link him very directly with the Communist Party of China.
红有什么错？我就是红。
Acting as a pro-Beijing mouthpiece, facilitating trips, bribery.
中华统一促进党在2018年的8月7号被这个台北地检署突袭搜索，说这个林国清先生有拿中国的现金跟公庙进行这个贿赂。
没有印象，对，因为
我们公庙本身的神明，他也很想回去寻根
我是台湾妈祖联谊会会长郑明坤，也是我们大甲镇南宫大甲妈这里的副董事长。妈祖他是在福建湄洲岛出生，那他在那边升天，包括我们大甲镇南宫很多台湾的这一些大间的宫庙，都是来自湄洲祖庙的妈祖。那我们人不会忘本嘛都想说我们都被妈祖的保佑的这么好，都会请了妈祖回娘家这样。
跟着妈祖走就是会遇到很多很神奇的，像我们去到大陆去的时候都是坐船，坐船每一次都是会遇到风浪，很大的风浪，但是就很神奇的只要跟妈祖讲上了船，平平安安的可以回到台湾来。每次到湄洲岛的时候都觉得很激动很荣幸。
所以那些宫庙的主委他们一心的小想的说要完成庙里神明的意愿，所以希望我们促进两岸交流。我才会说好，那我跟台湾那边联络看看。
And it's the Taiwan Affairs Office, this nondescript office block in Beijing, around which this tale turns.
像我个人是主张公庙交流很重要，因为文化统一源流嘛，我们的信仰是统一源流，对不对？去寻根而且你知道吧，我们中华文化的精英文化就在公庙。
中共中央台办、国务院台办主任宋涛、
国务院台办主任宋涛
2月16号、
1月2号、16号在北京
会见来访的台湾妈祖
联谊会会长
郑明坤一行。宋涛表示，两岸同胞血脉相连，是血浓于水的一家人。
我们要全面落实习总书记讲话精神，
坚定不移反对台独，维护和平，扩大交流。
妈祖文化是中华优秀传统文化的重要组成部分，
将继续以妈祖文化活动为载体，促进民心相通、心灵契合、人文交流，
并充分肯定台湾妈祖联谊会为促进两岸同胞交流、传承中华优秀传统文化做出的贡献。
只要两岸同胞团结一心，携手奋斗，
就一定能够
共创民族复兴美好未来。
台湾大选的脚步是越来越接近，
现在也在传出有境外势力借选，
这次借选的情况也相当严重，中国党似乎有干预选情的情况。
2001年，致汉宫董事长严清标就带着妈祖神像到贵州寻根，此后双方借妈祖文化交流不断。
大甲镇澜宫带着全台600间妈祖庙到大陆湄洲参加两岸妈祖文化交流的活动，
而参与的信徒超过了上万人。
是习近平交办湄洲当局，把湄洲岛当成对台交流的前沿阵地，
希望妈祖联谊会推动两岸同胞心灵契合，
和衷共济，粉碎任何台独图谋。
相信两岸是一家亲，相信两岸越交流越有机会。
海峡两岸台越交流协会大门深锁，一旁还停着警车戒备，气氛异常诡异。
检调查出，选举前不到3个月，林国信、李维杰涉嫌安排党员、亲友共63人前往广东旅游。
不过，检方发现资金来源似乎有问题。
过程中，有一名统促党的小弟，居然为了维护林国信，动手推媒体。
Just weeks after our interview, and days before the 2024 election, Lin Guoxin was arrested, charged with taking money from the Taiwan Affairs Office to engage in voter manipulation. We were shocked, if not surprised, for his was but one in a series of arrests which had been making headlines across the country. Lin Guoxin aside, however, none of those arrested had anything to do with temples.
这些就是早期的广州市台办那个小扁主任。李小扁也是广州的攀岩区才会呢。广州市越秀区常委有一个最高层的最大的领导。广州北京的主任台办主任翁明浩。
还有联络吗？
有啊，他都常常微信联络啊。就是一样啊。
Mr. Chen is one of 752 elected lijiang, or community leaders, in the city of Tainan, in charge of a community-sized block, or li. Lijiang are administrators, community builders, event organizers, and sometimes even tour guides.
I first heard about village wardens and their relationship with China from a meeting in June 2014 between the Taiwan Borough and Village Warden Association and director of the Taiwan Affairs Office.
当时铺天盖地的网站，铺天盖地的心理测验在网络上开展。那时候地面上也就是大量的里长开始到中国做旅游的时候。
In 2014, she held a private meeting with the Lijiang Association, catching a photo up which still hangs on the wall of the association's former leader, Guo Yunhui.
And at that meeting, he specifically talks about maintaining peaceful relations, etc. But he also says he hopes that they can 发挥积极影响 to use their influence. And so that's, I would say, a somewhat red flag.
James Chan was a lijiang in New Taipei for over 10 years, living right through this red flag era in grassroots relations.
当时他们在跟我讲说有这个旅游团的时候呢，是直接跟我讲说你只要付机票钱就好了。我一到下飞机之后就有专车来接手。那我们的对岸车道呢是大堵车，那我就说我这个时候只有对向会堵车，我们这个方向不会堵车。他说不是，你看前面有前导车，有人帮你开道。那我们到了饭店之后呢，我发现每一个里长都是住面海景观房，然后也不用钱，然后呢吃那也都不用钱。当然，他们也介绍一下他们当地的街道办就跟我们类似我们里长的单位一样。后来真的来了一个党的书记，是他们当地地方党的书记，我就知道说哇，真正的长官来了。他们从头到尾都在讲这个通关密语，两岸一家亲。敬酒的时候讲两岸一家亲，攀谈的时候讲两岸一家亲。咱们都是中国人啊，我们都是一家人我才知道说原来他们从上到下都是奉行着习近平讲的那句话"两岸一家亲"的这个宗旨来对台湾的里长进行统战。
那有凡是民选的官员都必须做这个服务，就是说你要对你的选民好，给他们一些好处，他们才会一直不断的支持你。里长最常办旅游来团结巩固他的支持者
但是呢经费都不够了，像我们环保助工队都倒地巡守队每天晚上巡逻都没经费如果有经费就是一年那个就几百块，
中国看准了这一点，直接把他们找来国台办。然后就跟他们讲说，你们要办活动没有问题啊，我们帮你对接统战部，所以他们就开始大量的在台湾办这种旅游团啊等等之类的。
尤其他们年纪都大一点，他们其实也都比较容易说，免费的东西，那我们就去一团的去这样子。
People have very positive views of China after they come back because what happens is they see a specific slice of China that's almost kind of wish fulfillment fantasy.
参访团成员对各地重视传统文化保护和传承大加赞赏。
我们这次回去希望能够跟我们就是下一代讲，我们中国的宝藏啊，真的太多了。
两岸本是一家人，两岸一家亲。
这就是卸下心防的一个手段，告诉你说，其实我们都是共同的文化、共同的民俗、共同的宗教、共同的信仰等等的，进一步再告诉你，其实我们没有什么不一样。
And so this kind of thing is quite effective, and it's a way to inculcate a kind of national loyalty, but also a sense of how great Taiwan could have it if it became part of China.
那时候你说里长旅游这个没有什么，很多人被带过去，他也不觉得怎么样啊。但他就是绑住里长的方式，我们都说这个叫养套杀。办久了之后呢，的确地方的里民很喜欢你，因为你很便宜，你就可以到中国做旅游。但是你等于也被绑住了，因为接下来再过3年，中国就会告诉你说，你是不是要跟你的里民稍微宣导一下？如果你不讲，很抱歉，以后就没有你的份。所以在2018年那时候，我印象非常深刻，台中跟彰化都有里长都在办那个地方活动的时候，告诉里民说，我们之后呢很有可能跟中国签和平协议。一旦签了和平协议之后呢，你的存款如果是100万台币，直接变100万人民币。
Repeated studies have shown that when assessing the trustworthiness of information, most people place far more importance on the individual sharing it than the original source. After reading a fake news article, participants in a controlled experiment both found it to be more factual and trustworthy, and were twice as likely to send it to others when it was shared with them by somebody they knew. Disinformation researchers call these trusted individuals opinion leaders.
Misinformation and disinformation can also be spread by such individuals at the local level, and then it seeps its way up to somewhere that's more noticeable. And a lot of our focus on disinformation and misinformation is because it's easy to do that at the level of sitting in front of a computer and analyzing this. But then in terms of local communities, it's much harder to kind of root out.
他们会有很多赖的群组，然后拉里民进来，他们就会贴了很多中国的影片，剪好的影片。那他们会有个系统，就是最上层可能是里长们的讯息，那往下就会是各里，然后加领长，他们就会这样传下去，一天就可能会有100多则讯息。像前一阵子的俄乌战争，中国有很多那种移花接木的影片，弄一弄，然后丢进去，然后对于长辈来讲会是不可能是 gay 啊，因为好像人家平顶管拢无，就是影片上面都有，这不可能是假的。譬如说我的家人意识形态是非常本土的，还是会影响。就会说，这是真的吗？乌克兰快要被打败了，然后乌克兰又乱攻击俄罗斯或怎么样的，但是实际上根本就没有。你知道婆婆妈妈看到这个东西，他们就也会传出去给朋友，他们是在比较密闭的地方传，你传到整个全台湾，大家就觉得需要去查辟这是辟谣的时候，都已经不知道传几天去了，而且也不知道多少人都收完了，所以完全跟不上他每天在传递这些假讯息或假影片的这个速度，这个是蛮恐怖的。
中国对统一台湾，其实它就是拼图的概念。比如说这里公庙我要掌握，宗教界我要掌握，运动界我要掌握，教师界、教育界。
你只做空中，你不做地面，那是没有效果的。你一定要2个都做，2个一夹击起来才会有效果。2023年恢复了交流。2023年以往没有用的统战预算一次会砸进来，习近平自己都讲了，大交流年了。
所以其实现在没有单纯的交流，就是统战为目的，只是把它分成这是学术，这是文化，这是宗教，还是这是商业，还是什么这样子。
The problem is that there is no civil society organizing that's not tied to, domestic political goals in China, which are to, erase Taiwan.
就连桃园市的议长。他还揪议员去面见统战部的部长陈通，然后被质疑的时候还说，那不然我放哪一条法规？这就是真的蛮痛苦的一件事，他们还真的没有犯法。
And not only do these exchanges not break any rules, many believe that they aren't even an issue at all.
Okay, we can start right now. Rolling.
I'm Dr. Alexander Huang, a full-time college professor and also the Director of International Affairs at the KMT.
What you have heard thus far is essentially the view of the Green Camp, a pro-independence coalition led by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP. But the opposite Blue Camp, led by the Kuomintang, KMT, fundamentally disagree on the nature and significance of these exchanges.
You know, the United Front work started more than 70 years ago. We can always put a label on it and say, this is information warfare against Taiwan's grassroots. They have been doing that with or without election for decades. But the key as a campaign issue was the actions by the prosecutors to investigate, to question them, this Li Zhang, one by one, and make it in the news, giving people or the electorate the image that these guys must have done something wrong.
最近台北市发生了一件事情，我们有41个里长被检调约谈。
怎么查法律？他也没有违反这个反渗透法，没有违反公职人员这个选举罢免法，都没有啊。
所以这是选举的过程当中的选择性办案。
那就因为吃了几顿饭，接受一点招待，那他就会变吗？
这些里长他们都是非常有智慧的人，一边一国，哪里会因为这样你就会改变你的方向呢？不是这样吗？我们国家要对自己这么没有信心吗？
反对司法介选。 力挺基层里长。
Across the Blue Camp, there is real anger and a deep sense of injustice. They argue that cross-strait exchanges are actually of real cultural and diplomatic value.
比较持有反对意见的人，他就会认为说你去到那边被统战，或者是你去到那边不知道拿了多少好处，比如说出卖台湾啊什么有的没有的这种言论。但是我认为这种言论对村里长来讲都是不公平的一种伤害啦。 你说接待就好像说朋友来找我，我会不会请他？会啊，
来就是客人啊，我们都会请他吃饭喝一下台湾的金门高粱，大家聚一聚啊，就这样。
基层的里长也都是在基层跟百姓，他到大陆能够发挥什么作用，发挥什么影响？
也是没有什么利害关系啊，因为两岸交流就是互相学习啊，互相交流啊。
On one hand, we can say that they are with evil mind, and that's one thing. But look from another angle, that's their job. They need to meet their KPI.
可能上级交代说一定要谈到两岸一家亲啊，血浓于水啊，都是中国人，然后同一个信仰，然后我们是同一个文化圈的人，这样子去拉拢彼此的关系。可是我觉得台湾这边的人也会知道说那个。 就是他们必须是这样讲那我们就听听就好了。蛮多是志在参加、志在朝圣、志在交流。那统战的部分，大家就会觉得，反正那是他们例行性的工作，我们就心知肚明就好了。
This idea that exchange hosts are just doing a job and acting out a routine was so prevalent in our investigations, in fact, that we decided to put it to the test. So, instead of R&R, we spent our spring festival in the eye of the storm, meeting the man who was there to witness its birth. It was 1987, and the first drops of dew had barely begun falling from the thaw of Taiwan-China relations when Tsai Chang-kuei began pushing for exchanges to his temple in Tianjin. There is no doubting the sincerity of Mr. Tsai's faith. The Mazu mural he spent 5 years painting, alone, is breathtaking. But when we asked him what he believed to be the purpose of Mazu exchanges, this is what he had to say.
侧重一点的呢，我觉得是一种是亲情，这都在讲文化认同，特别是中华民族的文化认同。在台湾好多的宫庙，你比如说这个北港朝天宫有个四海安澜，他认为是乾隆皇帝御赐的；大甲他认为是从福建妈祖庙去请过去的，包括我们那个祭拜，包括我们的民俗节日、妈祖的升天日的大型祭拜活动，都是一样的。文化的这种同根性、同源性， 也说明它是一个大家庭。你是不是中华民族？你最起码对中华民族的文化你有一个认同，对吧？那么这个认同本身呢，应该是一种交流，它是一种交流。
For Mr. Tsai, at least, United Front work is not just something he has to do. It is something he believes, and a core objective of his work with Taiwanese temples.
In terms of having a shared culture, a shared history, Taiwan is unique in the sense that it does have a lot more attack surface area than other places do.
It's funny because the Matsu pilgrimage is the largest religious event in Taiwan, but then Matsu is of course a Chinese goddess. The temples or many religious activities are very deeply linked to Chinese culture. And so I think the linguistic and cultural links do help making it easier to manufacture disinformation targeting Taiwan because we do share the same language. And so it's very easy to draw out these connections between Taiwan and China historically that way.
And so any area where there's some sort of commonality between two groups, the United Front target that and use that to manipulate and influence their targets. It's a weaponization of shared culture. It's using culture for political means.
At the same time, Mr. Tsai's Mazu faith and passion for religious exchanges are real and emotional. This passion is shared by his counterparts in Taiwan, for whom shared culture matters deeply. These links are real, and it would be unfair to discount them.
And so that's the question. It's a question of fundamental religious freedoms, also freedoms of travel. It's also a question of freedom of speech.
我们是从来没有去想过有政治因素，但是政府就是有朝这方面在影响进香啊，或是活动的动作我们也希望就是说，政治不要介入宗教，因为宗教我们是用那个心来面对这件事情。没有想到说我们今天到了那边去，我们就是大陆人还是中国人还是那边的人，我们今天是一个信仰，跟着妈祖来到这个祖庙去。
到对岸去交流是好事啊，不要把它看得太严重。到对岸去业祖，这是人之常情啊，寻根嘛，大家都必须要寻根嘛道教就是慎终追远嘛，怀念古人都是一定有的嘛。我们去到这个时候，看到他们百姓都是用香案来迎接，来供养我们圣驾，然后他们见到圣母来就马上跪下去，趴在地上向虎拜，真的会感动真的会感动。所以说也不要太政治化，把它太政治化了反而不好，反而大家会怕，以后要出门会怕，这不好。
And so we need balance. There is no question that the CCP is running a grassroots influence campaign against Taiwan. It has been running for 70 years. There is almost no question that when the CCP looks at grassroots exchanges, that is all it sees. An opportunity to co-opt genuinely shared cultural, historical and linguistic ties into its ultimate goal of gutting Taiwanese democracy and crushing its right to self-determination. It would be a mistake, though, for the rest of us to look at this genuinely remarkable international community of such emotional resonance to its participants with the same blinkers. Unlike its opponent, Taiwan must be wary, but not warlike.